And that's the story of how Monkey D. Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hat Pirates finally found the One Piece, discovered the truth of the Void Century, and brought an end to the reign of the corrupt world government. A story that'll be passed down for generations to come. Oh, that's so beautiful! I can't take it! All the emotions! That's totally super!
Huh?
What the hell?
Wait, is he asleep? Wake up, idiot!
I'm sorry, guys. What was going on?
You serious?
Oh, hey, Jinbei! So what happened after they went up that big mountain thing?
Mountain thing? Are you telling me you fell asleep at Reverse Mountain?
Well, yeah, it was just really long.
That was right when the story was getting good, Luffy!
What's the big deal? Jinbei
Are
can
you
just tell
seriously
us
gonna make us sit through all of that
But I
again
wanna
just
know
because
what
your attention span is so
happens.
short?
One Piece is legendary at this point. It has accumulated countless fans and has propelled Eiichiro Oda into the single most successful Japanese fiction author of all time. The series at this point has achieved a legacy that most anime could never dream of. A very, 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 very long legacy. Like, oh boy, it really does just keep going, doesn't it? Yeah, at this point, One Piece's length has become pretty well known. I mean, it's basically a meme at this point. And like, yeah, it's not exactly unwarranted. One Piece is just a lot longer than not only most anime, but most shows in general. I mean, look at The Simpsons, what is often considered one of the longest running television shows. Despite the fact that The Simpsons aired in 1989, a full 10 years before One Piece's anime debut, One Piece overall has a longer runtime, clocking in at over 450 hours with 1,140 episodes. Meanwhile, The Simpsons clocks in at around 290 hours with 790 episodes. To give you a little perspective, if you were to watch every episode of One Piece without eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, or taking any breaks of any kind, it would take you 19 days straight to fully catch up. Alternatively, if you were to, do what most sane people do and just watch 3 episodes a day or something, it would take you a little over a year to fully catch up to where the anime is. And despite the vast amount of praise that One Piece has received, this aspect of the series has proven to be somewhat contentious with certain viewers. And I feel like that's kind of understandable. After all, One Piece's length is quite overwhelming at this point. So I think the question inevitably comes up, is One Piece just too freaking long? So personally, I tend to lean more into the I like One Piece being so long camp. And one reason for this is the world of One Piece itself. I mean, just look at the universe that Oda has been able to create with nearly 30 years of time. The world of One Piece is vast. It isn't often in anime or manga or just fiction in general that you get worlds that are this huge, this detailed, this fleshed out with this much history behind them. Something like this is only possible with years and years of painstaking planning and hard work. And the funny thing is, Oda didn't originally intend for it to be this way. During an interview with New York Times in 2023, Oda had this to say.
I never thought One Piece would last this long. When I began, I imagined it might run for 5 years. But it was my first time doing something serialized, and I found that as I kept writing, the characters took on lives of their own. Before I knew it, they were writing the story for me, and it just kept going.
And that's another aspect of One Piece's length that serves as a huge strength. Just the sheer amount of incredible, memorable characters Oda has been able to create, flesh out, and populate this amazing world with. Not only are characters able to be developed to the most optimum degree, but also built up to an absurd level. You'll hear about characters and elements of the show well in advance before they physically appear. It's like you're part of a legend that's unfolding. amazing, and when these characters do finally appear, it rocks the entire world. This kind of payoff is only possible through long-form storytelling, and Oda does this immaculately. I really don't know how Oda would have possibly jammed all of this into just 5 years. But like, that's the thing, he probably wasn't planning on doing that. It's much more likely that a vast majority of the things that have happened in One Piece just would have been cut altogether in a more condensed 5-year version of the story. And that just doesn't sound nearly as good as what we've gotten. That said though, what exactly is the price you pay when your story is as long as it is? And it's here that we begin to get into more of the drawbacks of One Piece's immense length. One Piece isn't like other long-running series. For instance, you have stuff like Hunter x Hunter or Berserk that, yeah, are decently long, but also don't have very consistent releases. So if you were to retroactively binge these series, you could probably be done in no time at all. One Piece isn't like that. Sure, it has short hiatuses, but for the most part, it releases pretty consistently and is almost constantly pumping out content. And it's been like this not just for years, but entire generations. Like, when One Piece debuted, Bill Clinton was still the president of the United States.
It's the craziest thing in the world.
One Piece has accumulated a vast ocean of material to sift through, and it can be pretty daunting for new viewers. We live in a time where now shorter content is being pushed more than ever, not just through social media, but even anime specifically. More and more single core 13-episode seasons of anime are becoming the norm, and this mostly stems from serious issues taking place within the industry, which, if you're interested in that, you can learn more from this video. But when we live in the age of TikTok and YouTube Shorts and whatnot, it's not like the audience is going to reject this content. In fact, this is probably what a lot of people are used to now. Like, imagine being used to shorter content like this and then having to start an anime like One Piece. It's overwhelming, and not only that, doesn't really give the viewer instant gratification. As someone who loves the beginning of One Piece, I am fully willing to admit that the beginning of One Piece isn't the most exciting. Like, you hear so much about how hype One Piece is from its fans, and you turn on an early episode and the Straw Hats are fighting bozos like the Meow Bond brothers or something. I'm sorry in advance to any Meow Bond brother fans in the audience. I'm sure there's at least 6 of you. In addition to this, One Piece is all about the slow burn, especially with certain characters. For instance, a character like Buggy the Clown. You would never expect him to become as big of a player as he is in the rest of the anime just from the first few episodes he's in. He comes off as a simple one-off mook the Straw Hats have to get rid of, but over the course of hundreds of episodes, he becomes more and more integral to the plot, to the point that he's kind of a big deal now. But this just isn't apparent when you first start watching the anime. It's just a really, really big commitment and time sink, and you could use that time to be watching multiple other anime. In fact, in the time it would take to catch up to One Piece, you could watch all of Dragon Ball Z, Bleach, Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, and Demon Slayer and still have time to spare. Like, which sounds more appealing? Being able to watch and finish multiple anime that can all be very different from one another, or just dedicating all of your time to tackling this one anime? At that point, I imagine it starts to feel a lot like homework for certain viewers, which you never want to feel that way when you're watching any anime. In a lot of ways, One Piece's length is a double-edged sword. It affords the story a ton of detail and build-up, but it can also be somewhat alienating to new fans. However, there is a discussion to be had here about the anime specifically. A lot of people will tell you, and I am one of them, that the One Piece anime's pacing compared to the original manga is absolutely abysmal. And that while One Piece is a long series in general, the anime tacks on quite a bit of runtime that significantly adds to the length. When a studio adapts a manga into an anime, I found that usually they will try to adapt 2 to 3 manga chapters per anime episode. However, One Piece will sometimes not even cover a single chapter per episode, usually stretching out the runtime with extended scenes, filler, recaps. I mean, like, do you guys remember when the Straw Hats are about to storm Annie's lobby, and right before they do, they play like 5 whole flashback episodes? Well, the reason they do this is because the studio is trying to stay behind the manga at all times so that they can continue to be fed source material to work with. And this can cause the anime to slow down to a slog. Despite this, however, I have seen people who don't mind a slower pace or filler in general. For instance, I was talking to my sister about this the other day, and she said that she actually enjoys this aspect of the anime because it just means that she gets to spend more and more time with the Straw Hats. And that's a sentiment that I can fully understand. There's just something very comforting about knowing that you can just turn on the TV and the Straw Hat Pirates will always be there, going on some kind of crazy adventure. And stuff like filler arcs and extended scenes just means the more time you get to spend with them. That said, it would seem as though the license holders for One Piece are fully aware of the issues that some fans have with pacing as well as the sheer length of the series and are now accommodating them. Obviously, there's the live-action Netflix adaptation, which not only serves as a jumping on point for new fans, but even condenses the story quite a bit. This isn't something that I'm really that interested in, mostly because I feel like you lose a lot of the charm when you translate such wacky character designs into live action. It just doesn't really feel as unique to me, but I can recognize how this can serve as a more palatable version of the story to not only new fans, but even people that aren't super interested in anime in general. However, what I'm the most interested in is the new anime, The One Piece. They put the at the beginning of it to differentiate it from the current anime, but like, you know, let's be real here. People are still just gonna call it One Piece. The anime is being made in conjunction with Toei Animation and Netflix. It's basically a full-on remake of the anime with new modern-day animation that'll run concurrently with the original anime. And I have to say, I've been very excited for this show. I've been asking for years for a One Piece remake that tells the story with pacing that's closer to the manga. And it looks like this is exactly what this is going to be. If you want my opinion, I feel like this show will be perfect for new fans that have never been able to get into the anime because of its sheer length. And it definitely helps that it's being animated by Studio Wit, one of the best animation studios in the current day, known for shows like Attack on Titan, Ranking of Kings, and of course Spy Family. So the question still remains, is One Piece too long? And the answer is, it really just depends. There's some people that really don't mind sinking all of their time into a single anime, and then there's people who would rather spend that time watching many different anime. And both of those are completely valid. That said though, despite the fact that One Piece has been going on forever and has a length that can in many ways be seen as a detriment, I also think it's arguably one of the most exciting times to get into One Piece. With the series now in its final saga and these new shows emerging to help get newer fans into it. So really, I feel like in the future, everyone will have their own version of One Piece that suits them the best. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think One Piece is too long, or are you okay with its length? And what do you think about all of these new One Piece shows coming out? Let me know in the comments below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. It always means the world to me when you guys tune in. And until next time, I'll see you around.